Okay, looks like we're live. Need to go. Starting in a minute. And make sure everything is set. It is good. Looks like people are already starting to come in. We have a couple of guests. I think 20, 23, 27 people already joining us. And I think we're good to start, and people will catch up as they connect. We are here with two guests from Australia. So they're just starting their morning. It's 8 a.m. in there. Let us know in the chat where you're reaching us from. What time is it? If you're late in the afternoon, if we still have some work hours to do, if we're just starting the day, it's going to be interesting to know where people are listening us from. Let's start. So welcome everyone to this, I think, fourth edition of our webinar. Another interesting and amazing topic to discuss here. We have two amazing guests that are gonna share with us, and hopefully at the end of this hour, learn and make this a useful and interesting time for all of us. Very excited to be here with them. Before we start, for those of you who doesn't know me or who doesn't know Birdie, I am Pence. I'm one of the co-founders. I work with the product team here at Birdie. Birdie is a product analytics platform target for product teams, and we aim to help product teams to make better decisions by leveraging from the voice of consumer at scale. So we know that qualitative feedback is hard to get. We're trying to make that task with less effort and make that part of our continuous day-to-day job. Our solutions remove the friction, making it simple to use. And if you're interested in learning more, visit us at birdie.ai. At some point during the conversation here, Birdie team will share some links on the chat. Take a look at the chat if you want to get maybe some special link for a landing page or to start exploring our solution. Okay, so just one more housekeeping before we start. There will be people from the Birdie team at the chat helping you manage, organizing your questions. At the end of this session, we're gonna have a 10 minutes Q&A space. So feel free to post any questions, any doubts, anything that is not clear, feel free to post at any moment, and the Birdie team will help organize and bring at the proper time. We're gonna make sure that our guests, they get your questions, and we collaborate to share the knowledge and make it common among us. And without further ado, let's start. I'm gonna ask to our guest panelists to introduce themselves. Adrian, maybe start with you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yep, no worries. Hi, my name is Adrian. I am the co-founder of a product management consultancy called Brainmates. We have been, doing and operating this business since 2004, when really nobody cared or knew about what product management was about. So I'm you could call me a product nerd. I've been working with all sorts of different organizations to help them build their products, build their product practice. So I'm very excited to be here.
That's amazing. A veteran, a product veteran.
Old. Veteran equals old.
A specialist, a guru.
We could call it that.
Thank you for being here with us. It's a pleasure.
That's our pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Okay. Akasha?
Yeah, thanks so much. My name's Akasha. I'm based here in Melbourne, Australia. Currently, I'm the Director of Product Management at Zendesk, and I work on our external developer platforms. That covers all things developer ecosystem, apps marketplace, extensibility, and sandboxes. I've been working in product management for about a decade, and I've worked in different roles from startups and scale-ups all the way through to more mature organizations like Zendesk today. So really excited to be here and really excited to learn from Adrian today as well.
That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you, you two, for your time. It's also a pleasure to be here with you. We use Zendesk as clients. We use Zendesk as partners integrating. So it's great to have you with us, being part of this ecosystem. Okay, without further ado, let's start with a warm-up, simple questions. So things like, are we talking about stakeholder management, stakeholder influence, stakeholder relationship? How would you better define it? Let's start with Adrian.
Yes, I prefer the term stakeholder relationship. And the reason why I do is because I find that the word management sounds contrived, as in there's a hidden agenda behind the word management when you're working with your stakeholders. I mean, ultimately, you know, we require humans to build product. Well, maybe in the future we may not, but that's a different topic. But, you know, humans build product. You know, we work together to build product. And I think that is probably the fundamental thing that we need to consider in product management. And so we need to learn how to interact, to support, to enable one another when we're building products. So I prefer the word relationship because that's what we have. That's a fabric of organizations. That's a fabric of our society. So it's really important that we treat each other humanely and kindly. And so the word relationship is much nicer than the word management.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Akasha.
I definitely agree with that. I would build on that as well. I really think of it as stakeholder collaboration and engagement. I agree with you that management can seem like a bit of a negative word. It kind of gives connotations that these people are in my way, when really these are the people that you're building the product experience with, and we can't do it by ourselves. So it really is about relationships, collaboration, and engagement in a strategic way as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes I like it to be kind of natural as well. You know, it's really important that, like, because we spend most of our life at work, so it's great to build up like a relationship. Look, I've known you for a while, Akasha, so it's really lovely to see you and engage. And I think that's something that we always should bear that in mind.
Definitely agree. And being human in stakeholder engagements, that's one of the pieces I'm working on, particularly as I've moved up seniority levels. Yeah. I found myself acting like a corporate robot with all of these people and not acting like a human and natural, and making those relationship connections that are key to engaging with these stakeholders. So yeah, being human, being natural is so important.
It makes so much sense, and it makes me think on the role of a product management, of a product manager. We are usually as a relationship hub, right? Interacting with so many different roles, so many different minds, having sometimes to go up and talk business, and then empathizing with a technical mind and the technical way of viewing things and think about things. And we need to craft those things to make them make sense and work together to deliver something that doesn't exist and creates value to the world and to people. I was gonna bring something. Why is it important to establish this relationship, and why does it matter? And I think you guys summarize this as we're building products for people, so we need to connect with them, and all of them in their different roles, empathizing, being able to extract all the details and the unsaid information. So it's
I think you're raising
the soft skills of crafting this relationship. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that is a really great point. That, you know, it's the way that we connect is not necessarily through words, but the way that, you know, we behave, the way that we look at each other. I think that is something that we need to, I guess, pay more attention to. And in terms of soft skills, I'm not a fan of the word soft skills, because I find that humans are really very complex. And so personally, I prefer the word adaptive skills, human skills, as opposed to soft skills. So I'm trying to change the narrative.
Yeah.
Rather than soft skills. These are really hard things to grasp and do well.
Yeah. That's
I
great.
agree. And there's a lot of science behind soft skills. And I'm going to steal that word adaptable as well. People learn in different ways, they communicate in different ways, and adapting your communication style based on that science and learnings is so important beyond just verbal communication.
Yeah. When we think about relationships and communication, there's one word that usually comes to mind, that is stories, right? The way we tell stories to pass knowledge, the way we collect stories, so we interact, so we're able to collect stories from our peers, those stakeholders, all the people around a product initiative. So being able to collect stories, build stories, and communicate is intrinsically part of the day-to-day of a product manager. Communicate well, collecting the details to be able to prioritize, make decisions, and communicate those decisions to all these stakeholders. Talking about stories, can you share a story of your life where a good relationship made all the difference and was part of something remarkable that you can share? Kasia, we'll start with you. Can you share one of those stories?
Yeah, and I think the best stories always start in a challenging space. And I can think about one of the product initiatives I worked on, where I was working with a person, a collaborator, where our initial incentives and drivers seemed like they weren't aligned at all. We were working on a piece of change that would broadly impact the business and our users' experience. And from a product development team perspective, we were looking to rush this change. We were saying, the lines are coming. We're having reliability challenges. Let's rush this change out to customers. But on the other side, I was collaborating with my communications partner, and their incentives are to minimize customer change and to have a really great customer change experience, which can take time. We were almost at loggerheads for a moment because we were saying, the lines are over there, move quickly. But what I really need to do is to be human, take a step back and really connect with this person, because when I could form that relationship, we could look at our incentives, and at a higher level, what we were looking for is the best customer outcome and experience. And when we could really sit in each other's shoes and look at the experience as a whole, we could really move forward with a plan where we could action this change to protect our customers from these reliability concerns, but also deliver a comms experience that gave customers enough time to adapt to this change and be able to migrate successfully. So I think customer collaboration and engagement and internal stakeholder collaboration and engagement can take time, and really relies on empathy and adaptability in order to be successful.
Yeah, building trust is a long time process, right? It's not an event, it's an entire process. Adrian, I'm pretty sure you have lots of stories to share with us.
I don't know. I did think about that. I thought, is there one moment in my life where there was a meaningful kind of engagement with somebody quite specific? And to be honest, I think my life is a series of small events rather than big events. Thank God for that, because I don't think I can handle a big event, especially managing stakeholders. So I think it's a collection of, interactions over time, and it's not, and I would hate to have a big moment because I think that's when we're in a crisis mode.
Yeah.
And so I think what you talked about, trust, is fundamental to good kind of relationships. And it's very hard to build, especially in a world where, we don't see each other, we're all online. Yeah. We don't get a sense of that connectedness because of our screens. So I think it's about taking the time to build trust. If we don't have trust, we can't build great teams. And trust, foundational trust, is about really having those difficult conversations and not being afraid to have those difficult conversations. And difficult not being, mean or nasty, But difficult meaning, hey, I see a problem. Let's raise the problem. Let's talk about the problem rather than hide the problem, because hidden problems manifest into really large problems. And that's when you reach that crisis point, and that's what we want to avoid. So I rather have that smaller, crunchy, slightly crunchy conversation before it becomes into a massive crunchy conversation, to make sure that the path is smooth and that the relationship improves. And it feels, you know, when you do, it's absolutely nerve-wracking having a tough conversation. You build it up in your mind, but when you have that that tough conversation, the relationship and the interaction really elevates and it goes to a different level.
What you just said is connecting with a couple buttons here and make me remind of some stories. When you bring things about these hard conversations and you bring this point of building the trust and not hiding the hard situations, but let's talk about this. Let's make this into a new solution. Trust and maturity of the team, not only from the product managers we have to develop, but also from the team. It will require us to communicate and approach and develop this trust in different ways. So it will require from us different levels of effort. So two things we could approach here. I want to bring the point of how does a relationship evolves during the career of a product manager in different levels of maturity and different levels of maturity within the companies. So startups, stakeholder relationship is different in a large enterprise. So how can you talk about different levels of maturity, and maybe in a different topic, maturity of the team, how we interact with in teams that have different formed by different people, different ages, different stages of their careers. So maybe start with the companies, companies in different maturity stages. Akasha.
Who would you like? Akasha, go Akasha.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. I think thinking back to my previous role, I was working at a scale up, and engagement and collaboration was very different in that environment. I was working more at depth because we're a smaller team, and my role really was translating the founder's vision and actioning it and operationalizing it. And we could be a little bit more casual and free flowing and speedy about how we were collaborating and engaging. But when I joined Zendesk, it's a much larger organization. There's 6,000 employees. We have millions of users. And for a moment, I was saying, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And what I found is that there's a few helpful tools to prepare myself behind the scenes. So creating a mental stakeholder map can be really helpful, and putting your product hat on and doing a little bit of investigating and interviewing your peers, your boss, your customers, to really start creating that mental model to understand the different collaborative and engagement relationships, and also understand their drivers, their incentives, and their relationships that can influence their decisions as well. And we're really working at breadth. So in a larger organization, I was working with stakeholder groups that I had never worked with before. So a really formal legal team. We had tech alliances teams. So things that I was working on myself as a startup and I could kind of manage and engage myself, I really had to scale through that map and mental model and work at that breadth to maintain those relationships and engagements. And it does take a little bit more time.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the way that, I mean, I love the whole stakeholder map, but I like that you call it a mental model, because,
yeah,
you know, sometimes putting these things down on paper is a little bit tricky. You don't want to share those pieces of paper with too many people, but it's good to consider it as a mental model.
Absolutely. And it would be a little bit creepy to write that down.
Sometimes though, I've been in I did a piece of work for the federal government in Australia, and I had to actually map that stakeholder map. So there are situations where it was like so complex, trying to deal with all the different kind of government agencies and understanding, you know, what motivates them, what doesn't. So that one went on a piece of paper. I couldn't do that one in my head.
You needed a 3D piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Invisible ink.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, folks, just before we move on, for the folks who are watching us now, if you're thinking and wondering what's my company maturity level, the Birdie team will share a link with a quiz on the chat. Take some time to answer the questions and try to discover how's your company organization doing at this moment. But sorry, back to you, Adrienne.
Oh no, I guess I'm in a fortunate position that I have the opportunity to work with startups, founders, scale-ups, enterprise and government through the consulting work that we do. And I think the thing that I understand that we have to shape sometimes the way that we respond in our behavior to our environment. That's very important. But I guess for me, and maybe I'm old, I try and bring my authenticity to each, to everywhere that I go. And so whilst I might flex a little bit about how I communicate, I want to always make sure that, you know, I am who I am. It's too late now to change. And so authenticity is super important.
Yeah. The things that experience make us learn, right? Talking about learning, and for people who are starting, maybe in the middle of their career, for a product manager, what are the steps they need to take to craft their relationship skills? Adrienne.
You know, I'm going to say something quite odd, and but I think it's foundational to every kind of person really in their career. It's the first thing I would do is really spend a lot of time on assessing self. Self-awareness is fundamental to any relationship building. So rather than an external kind of, hey, how do I learn how to build empathy, or how do I learn how to manage, or, you know, put together this a mental model, the first thing I would do would start with self. How do I behave in certain situations? What triggers me? What upsets me? What elevates me? Observe myself in conflict situations, observe myself in, you know, when I'm really engaged and happy. I think you need to really know yourself before you can work well with others. So a lot of the training that we do, like product leadership training, the first day of the course is self-awareness. And I think that freaks most people out. They're like, what? I've come here to learn about product leadership. You want me to learn about myself? Yes, you can't engage with others if you don't know yourself.
I definitely agree with that. Self-awareness and authenticity. And sometimes I find it helpful to share the things I'm working with my key collaborators. Like, these are the things I'm looking to improve on. If they crop up, please let me know. I'm really working on this. And to give them a little bit of a readme when we start, so that we have shared expectations of how this working relationship might go.
Yeah, and I love that sharing aspect. You could also share how you feel about it. Hey, I'm a little bit worried about this, or I'm you know, super excited, and here's why. I think it's good to really share, and we tend to kind of hold ourselves back. Not to say you should overshare. So there is a balance.
There's a line.
That's a line. Sometimes I overshare, and I'm like, oh, wind yourself back. That's that self-awareness piece. I'm like, oh, a little bit of balance here is really important. But yeah, it's important to share with your stakeholders, the people that you work with, you know, your peers, about what's important, why it's important. I think the why is really critical, so that people can empathize with you. You're giving them the opportunity to empathize with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that's good. Knowing yourself is a process of being prepared before you are ready to interact with others, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about being prepared and connecting with product managers. A lot of what we do, as we mentioned in the beginning, is tell stories and using those stories to move on and to take the next step. What's the part of data and data analysis and data? Our last webinar was about data-driven versus data-informed decisions. How does data play a part in this stakeholder relationship thing, Akasha?
Data is a really impactful but really challenging space. And I think one of my learnings is to tell a story with data and not just dump a whole bunch of raw insights on stakeholders. Also crafting your data story based on what we know about that stakeholder, what they're interested in, what their drivers are, what their key concerns are. Can we mitigate it with that? I also think that pairing quantitative data with qualitative data is so important, and taking that to a third step, linking that with strategic intent. So I like to think of it as a bit of a formula or a recipe, taking a quantitative data insight, pairing it with a customer insight, and then linking it back to our strategic intent.
What about you, Adrian?
When you were talking, I was reflecting and absolutely, agree with what you're saying, Akasha. I was reflecting back actually at a time when I was writing my thesis. My thesis was completely different, nothing to do with product management. It was actually on the economics of marriage and divorce. I had to write a 40,000 word thesis. I know, right? It's all coming true now. Oh my God. But one thing that we have to be really, one thing that we should be really mindful of with data is not to use data for bad, because you can take any piece of data and you could craft any story around that piece of data. Because the thesis person in me knows how to do that. And so I think as a product person, we have to look at our data as objectively as we can. That's so hard to do sometimes because we do fall in love, we're humans. There's a natural affinity for a particular solution or a feature or customer. And so we tend to, trend towards that, and we can bring data to support it. So I think in terms of data, it's being as objective as we can be and questioning whether that piece of data is true or not before we weave it into that story. The craftiness in me.
What are the tools and techniques you use to make sure that data is as true as possible? Do you look at your data landscape at a macro level? How do you use data in a really safe, impactful way?
I think one thing that I would question is the context of how the data was collected. And so I think, if you need to understand that, in which situation, what context the data is collected before you use that piece of data. That's where I would because like I say, you can abstract data and do all sorts of, wonderful things with it and craft a story. But contextually is probing around how's the data collected? In what situation was the data collected before using that piece of data?
And how was it instrumented? Is it instrumented appropriately? Yeah,
exactly.
And in your past and current experience, Adrian, how much established as a process, as a continual thing, is data being used by product managers, by product teams, or is it something that sometime, maybe ad hoc, I'm gonna try to go back and find some information to prove the point, or is it something they're
So you mean data discovery or just discovery in general? Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question.
Yes, I would say that a discovery, but I think the use of exploration and data to inform the communication and to drive the way a product manager is going to interact with these stakeholders. Sometimes I need to use what I know to explore deeper. So using as a starting point to ask questions. In other situations, I need to compile the learnings to reinforce and make those decisions. So yeah, let's try to summarize as discovery.
I guess you're always collecting data. It doesn't have to be a formal process. By the very fact that we're having a conversation, we're collecting pieces of information about each other. And it's a product manager's job to always kind of this is the core skill of product, right? Taking all of this data information, whether it be qualitative, quantitative, coming out of, financial reports versus analytics and metrics, and synthesizing that information and analyzing that information and to create, I guess, a path forward. So it's constant. It's the job. It's exactly the job. I see this, the customer said that, my business wants this. I've got to kind of munge all that data, this computer that's going on in our heads and go, oh, okay, here's the actual situation. What would I do in that situation? What's the best step forward? And, you kind of got to do that in minutes. But that's the job. That's the core. Like people go, what's the core skill of product people? That's the core skill, and be able to communicate that. Ranking the head all the time.
Always on. I want to use the opportunity with all the different, backgrounds from you guys, different company sizes, different business, different markets. Adrian mentioned from startups to government initiatives. And with Akasha, we know large enterprise companies using Zendesk. In those different industries, what are the typical stakeholders product teams need to deal with to create and build these relationships? Typically, what are the most important stakeholders we need to focus and deepen this relationship with them? Akasha, let's start with the B2B and then we move to larger to smaller.
Yeah, I think I'll start off with the constant, and that is focusing on the user and the customer, because that's who we're building for. And in terms of stakeholder engagement and relations, it's kind of easy to do that when you're in a smaller organization. You've got lots of advocates amongst your customer base. They're really happy to speak to you. They're invested in the success of your product. And as you move to other larger organizations, the number of stakeholder groups you need to engage with increases, and a trap that you can fall into is focusing on internal stakeholders only. And that's what I always try and remind myself of, is focus on the users and the customers. Look at those external factors. Even though you might be having regular syncs in your calendar with your security counterparts, your compliance counterparts, do your homework and make sure, like you're saying, in a continuous way, that you're interacting with your end users, your customers, and in my space, these are developers as well.
Adrian,
in governments.
Oh gosh, in government is massive. That map needs to come back out. But ultimately, I guess in terms of who your stakeholders might be, it's your role as that product person. So, you might be a product manager, a senior product manager, a group, a head of, a CPO. Your sphere of influence should increase as you rise in your career. In small companies, obviously, you're more in close contact with founders who might be very emotional because they're building their dream. Really, really important. In government, there is a lot of bureaucracy because risk is something that has to be managed. So I think it's, as where you have to figure out where you sit in the kind of hierarchy. There is still a hierarchy. Understand your sphere of influence. And as you move up, like I said, push beyond that, those your circle of influence.
I want to connect that with something that Akasha mentioned in the beginning of our conversation. Challenging situations, they are good to use those stories to deepen the relationships, right? So challenging situations, they are a good space for that. And before we start, we were discussing about 2023 and how challenging the times are becoming. Both executives, PMs, we are running under a lot of pressure lately. Sadly, all of us know that. How can a better stakeholder relationship can help ease the situation, or at least reduce the impact, reduce the risks of that? How can we use this relationship to try to find better results and create impacts in scenarios where it's so challenging, Adrienne?
Yes, it is a very challenging economic environment at the moment, and we run a business, so we certainly feel that very intimately. I guess transparency is super important, so I like to address the elephant in the room. Hey, I can't lie to folks around here. Hey, we're experiencing some difficult times. Because I say that we're all adults. When you show up at the organization, you're an adult. You should be treated like an adult. We're not going to hide, not to scare people. Again, balance. Transparency is super important. If you have those transparent conversations, I think that there is enough collective knowledge and skill in the room in most companies to be able to work and solve that problem together. So I think you have to be transparent, expose the problem, and as a team, challenge each other to try and figure out how to solve that problem. And humor works well too. It really does. It's super important.
This goes well for any time, right? For any period. Akasha, anything different in those moments that we should try to type? Because
I definitely agree with that. A theme that's coming to mind as well is alignment. So when we're in high growth environments, it's summertime, we can make more bets, we can have more experiments, and there's also more room for error. But when we're in challenging macroeconomic conditions, we do need to focus our investments, and having that good stakeholder alignment on what we're doing, what bets we're going to make, can really help in those scenarios, particularly as product management portfolios might be expanding, the breadth of their ownership might be expanding because we're in hiring freezes or any other scenarios, and having alignment on key priorities, what we're really going to focus on, what we're intentionally not going to do is really helpful in environments like this.
Yeah, completely 100% agree. We have quarterly planning sessions, and as a small business, and in tough times, you can see us kind of be completely laser focused on, like really laser focused on a couple of things that'll have impact on our performance, financial performance. Yeah,
definitely agree.
Getting closer to those internal stakeholders, the execs, the top level management, we need to keep aligned, and we're bringing transparency and be authentic and having the hard conversations. What about when they have a different perspective, how to drive conversation, drive relationships to build agreement on something that is not working? Is there any good guidance, advice for people who are facing this kind of challenging? Adrienne, sorry.
No worries. There are, yes, I think the first thing you have to do is there is something called, there's a couple of things. One, we need to respect the other person's opinion and position in the organization. Our job here is not to always win the argument, right? I think we need to be mindful of that. So, and we shouldn't see it as I win or lose. Mm-hmm. I think we just have to appreciate how to move the situation ahead move it along. And there are times where, you know, we may present our stories to like a founder, we may present the data, we may present a great, you know, business case, we might present some great customer insights. But that the founder, for example, or the CEO, the CPO, may still have a difference of opinion, irrespective of the data that you put forward. And I think as a product person, we have to respect that that person is entitled to their opinion, and they have, they've earned the right to make the final decision. It's probably counterintuitive because most times we go, hey, you know, we have to put forward great data and we have to try and win our arguments so that we can move forward. Sometimes we just can't. Sometimes we just don't. And that's just the fact of life. It's reality. And so as much as we put forward our opinion, we also have to say, okay, well, I've presented you my argument. I've given you the risks. I've done the analysis. If you choose to move forward down this path, which is not, you know, what I recommend, that's okay. I support you, and we just have to move forward. And if we come unstuck, we'll solve the problem then. But there needs to be some kind of respect for the person who's earned that respect and the ability to make that decision.
I definitely agree with that. And we kind of talk about disagreeing and then respectfully moving on with the decision once it's been made. And I think they've earned the right to make that decision, but they may also have access to information that I don't have. They work at a higher breadth than me. And if there's time, I like to get curious about the drivers behind the decision, because I find that whether a team agrees with the decision or not, coming back with a reasoning behind the decision and some data behind that decision can really help the team move forward after the decision has been made.
Yeah, love it. Be curious, ask why.
Yeah, trying to help our audience here. We're still not there yet, but there's a question shared by one of the people watching the webinar. And he or she asks, as a product manager, how do you define and share leadership ownership with stakeholders and the product team? How to delegate and how to define ownership on the relationship, different roles? Adrian?
Who would you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So how do you define leadership? So there's two things here. Firstly, there's a whole management issue, which is slightly different to leadership. Leadership is an act, a set of behaviors. It's how we, you know, engage. But in terms of management and defining certain tasks, I think it's, you know, it starts with the job description, and within the job description, you shouldn't copy it off the internet. This is my big thing. Don't copy your job description off the internet. Got to go figure it out for yourself, where what you need for your business. You know, you articulate that job description with the product manager. They should always understand, you know, their responsibilities and the activities that they should be carrying out. If they don't perform, then it's that coaching crunchy conversation. If they are not doing what you expect them or what has been set out to do, so be clear about that, then it's having that coaching conversation on a daily basis. I hope I've answered that question well, because I'm not sure whether I got that quite right.
Yeah, we don't have more details, so I think it's from Vince. Vince, if you want to share additional details, the Birdie team will bring us here, and maybe we can go back to that on at the end of the session, the QA. But this is good. Yeah, makes total sense. Kasia, anything to add on leadership and ownership, responsibilities, sharing within the team? You have.
I think there's some pretty common frameworks and models that can be helpful to get started. So the RACI model is really helpful, particularly working through programs and getting really clear, like Adrian spoke to, about who's responsible for what outputs, where we should all be focused on similar shared outcomes, but being really careful about setting clear expectations about ownership, about outputs, and about all working towards shared outcomes.
But somehow related question is about how to avoid scope creep situations where clients are bringing requests and the product person just becomes someone who is translating wishes from here to there. How to better deal with that, Kasia?
Ooh, recovering person with the disease to please.
Without ruining the relationship you're trying to build, right?
Yeah. So you want to build that relationship, but you also need to find your way of really respectfully saying no, or great idea, but not now, or here's what we're focusing on at the moment. This is why it's important, but this is really great feedback. I'll log this away to review at a later stage. And I think engaging with those stakeholder skills, stakeholder engagement and relationship skills is so important in managing all of these inbound requests. And like we were speaking about previously, it is our job to process all of these different data inputs. And it's not about automatically saying no either. It might be a great insight or feedback where you look at your plan and your path forward and say, actually, this is changing things. Maybe I need to reconsider my plan. So you really have to adapt to different situations and different data inputs.
Yeah. Anything else on that, Adrian? Scope creep?
Scope creep. Yes, I have lots to say about scope creep. Firstly, it starts with some artifacts that we need to have in every product team or every product organization. What's your product vision? Where is it that you are heading? And be really, and you know, you don't build that individually. You build that as a team. You get you get input from your fellow stakeholders. You shape it through research. You shape it through ambition. You know where, and you get alignment on that vision. Hey guys, just so we know, here's where we're heading. So that artifact is imperative and it helps manage those discussions. And then secondly, once you have a vision, strategy, how will we attack it? Like, how will we get to our vision this year and next year? What part shall we approach? Those artifacts help you manage scope creep, and you've got to have them. And as Kasia says, it's not about saying no. It's about saying, hey, we have aligned on our path. We're aligned on here's how we're going to tackle it and here's how we're moving forward. What has changed since we agreed on this for you to bring this idea, feature to us? I mean, it's having, you know, and clearly I didn't say that very politely or diplomatically, but ultimately it's having those couple of artifacts that you use to manage the scope creep and manage the discussion. And use it to also align team, because when you see people, even if it doesn't come to you, operating outside the boundary, you would say, hey guys, I thought we had agreed that this is where we're heading. Why is this suddenly, is there something that I don't know about, piece of information that I don't have that made you do X, Y, and Z?
Having a clear plan, having a clear direction, right? I agree with that. Kasia?
Yeah.
I think artifacts are so important. I definitely agree with that. And one piece that I've experimented with as well is having an anti-roadmap, which is full of great ideas that we're intentionally not doing so that we can focus on the most impactful ideas. And having this documented as an artifact as well can be really helpful to reference that, yes, great idea, but here's where we're focusing.
Yes, but no. You
yes, no, great opportunity, but these yes, are our later. Yeah.
That's great. That's amazing. I love the anti-roadmap. Is that what you called?
Yeah,
Yeah, I love
anti-roadmap.
that too. I love that. You should clone, like, you know, let's put it out there. Today's IP, anti-roadmap.
Yeah. Just trying to wrap up, going to the end of this session. We're gonna make some space to bring some additional questions from the folks that are not addressed here. Most of them were, but to Adrian, I'm gonna bring that in a moment. People are really interested about the know yourself, self-awareness. So a couple of questions about that. I'm gonna make sure we leave some time at the end so we can share a little bit more about that. But before we break, I just wanna give this heads up for the people who are watching us. At the end of March 22nd, we're going to have the next webinar about these hard moments of the market, the economic downturn. So if you're interested, anxious to learn and to hear, and maybe look at something that is going to help you get calmer and I don't know. Stay tuned. At the end of the month, we're going to have this other conversation, maybe interested to a lot of you folks. So, okay, before we move to audience questions, anything that we didn't discuss, you think it's completely important to be here? Adrian, anything you want to
No, I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. Akasha?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground and I've learned a lot from this session. So I hope the audience has too.
I was gonna say the same. I just learned a lot in this session. It was amazing. Hope we have other opportunities to connect again and to share a little bit more with the folks and between each other. So it's amazing. I think we're good to go. Let's make sure we have some time to bring the questions. I'm just seeing here. Hippo effect. We have a question from Thomas, and he's saying, in your experience, how do you handle hippo effect constructively in decision making? I'm gonna confess, hippo effect is not something that is familiar for me. Kasha, Adrian?
I don't quite understand the question. How do
you handle hippo effect?
Hippo, highest paid person in the
room.
Hippo,
okay, yeah. Go, Akasha, go.
Well, I love an animal metaphor. I think it's a very cute term.
Person, yeah.
I do keep an eye out for the hippo effect. One piece that comes to mind is not interfering too much in product discovery and learnings too early when you are the hippo in the room, and really empower teams to do their work and work through the outcomes that they're looking to achieve and do their research synthesis and analysis without gonzoing in and dropping your opinion too soon, which may be based on very imperfect data and very imperfect experiences. So that's kind of how the hippo effect impacts me, but also want to acknowledge that sometimes the hippo has earned their right to make the call and make the decision. So it really is a balancing act. So I'm more conscious of how I interact as the hippo rather than dismissing any hippos that might be in the room with me.
Ditto. I'm just going to go ditto.
I think we addressed some of that when Adrian was talking about not necessarily about winning or losing all the battles, right? Maybe let's just agree and disagree. Let's move on to the next one. We also discussed about the artifacts and having a clear vision, a clear strategy, and being able to say, hey, I thought we had agreed on this path and this decision. This goes against, this is in our NT roadmap. So yes, but no. I think we cover a lot of ideas here that may help with that. Okay, if there's anything else that we should deep, Thomas, feel free to bring the questions. And I saved this last one for last. Auriga, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Auriga is asking, how do you best teach self-awareness, particularly when working with very binary, they have all the answers, engineering experts. I feel the pain of working with geniuses, the engineer stars, but this goes for different kind of people. How to best teach self-awareness?
It's very hard to teach others how to be self-aware. That is, I don't think teaching others about self-awareness is what we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that we should understand how we behave and respond in those particular situations with our fellow geniuses. So that's the whole idea about self-awareness, right? We can't change others. We can only work on ourselves. And so if you find yourself in a really difficult situation, you're not getting, you feel like you're not being heard. I think you need to go, how am I behaving? Why does it affect me in this way? So journal about it. You're going to have to take time out to write. It's all these simple things. There is no magic silver bullet. So I would step away and go, okay, that situation was really uncomfortable. Why did I find that uncomfortable? How did I behave in that situation? Did my behavior get the desired outcomes? If not, how might I change my behavior so that we can get the desired outcomes as a team?
I think this is brilliant. Brilliant. It gets back to how to best know ourselves, maybe to behave different in situations like that, causing a different behavior in others, right? That's what we can do. Anything on that, Akasha?
I just definitely agree. Tick, tick, tick. Specifically for self-awareness and self-reflection, your circle of influence is yourself, and it really is the most impactful place to be and grow. Some of the kind of tactics I use is to think about when I was feeling high energy versus low energy throughout the day, what I was doing, how I was behaving, and also those friction points throughout the day. Where am I really struggling and I'm not getting the results I'm looking for, and how am I showing up, and how are others showing up, and what can I learn from how they're behaving that could improve how I'm behaving in this situation. Learning from different leaders and different experts is really helpful as well.
Yeah. And modeling good behavior. So, you can show others how you behave, and maybe that might have an impact.
Absolutely.
Let's close with that. I'm really happy to have spent this past hour with both of you. I hope for all of our audience it was somehow useful and meaningful, but it was certainly really interesting and useful for me. I learned a lot with both of you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for spending this hour chatting with us. I know both of you have the entire day ahead. You're just starting.
Damn, yes.
Okay, at the top of the hour, thank you both. Thank you to all.
Thank you.
All of us who are coming to us via LinkedIn. See you in the next edition. Have a good day, Akasha. Have a good day, Adrian.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening.
See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.